He is a stray dog abandoned by the Skyworm organization. He is now one of the main forces of the shelter, but he always remembers the shame of the past. And today, he finally relies on his own strength. He took down the six-legged cadre of the Skyworm organization, but that was only the first form of the mantis beast. When the enemy reveals its second form, Camo, both he and Ryan were overwhelmed by the powerful aura. On the other side, Zane is also watching the battle here. He now feels pain all over his body, and can't even escape. Suddenly, a hand covers his mouth. Anna quietly sneaked in here at some point, without attracting anyone's attention. She and Zane disappeared on the spot, while Jigganar remained stubborn on the battlefield. He is just a bug that has shed its shell. After saying that, he charged out first. And he immediately grew several more legs. You make it sound like it's not a big deal. His 6 legs all lunged towards Camo. But even with such intense attacks, they couldn't touch the hem of his garment. So Jigganar raised his dual blades and chopped down. However, he was blocked by the opponent's soft cloak. Camo scoffed. "Don't compare yourself to me. You might easily end up dead." With that, he swung his knife horizontally, leaving Jigganar no time to dodge. Fortunately, grabbing his hair and pulling it back with one hand narrowly allowed him to evade the attack. However, Camel attacked again. Ryan urged him to act faster, and eventually, the attacks of both sides collided with Camel's broadsword. But they immediately realized something was wrong. Sure enough, the next moment, they were swept off and thrown out. They only then realized in horror that the enemy was simply not on the same level as before. However, before they could even stop, the other party had already arrived in front of them. "Didn't expect you still had time to talk. You go first." With that, he swung his knife towards Ryan. In midair, he had nowhere to borrow force. Ryan couldn't dodge at all. Fortunately, Jigganar first used the hilt of the knife to knock him away. But when Ryan stopped his movement, Jigganar next to him had already been struck by a sword. Ryan went mad and rushed to kill Camo. But all his attacks were blocked, and he couldn't even get close to the enemy. And his prize-pointed spear was chopped into pieces. He saw Camo charging towards him. Ryan seemed to give up resistance, but the next moment a large knife struck Camel's neck. Camel's body paused for a moment. But Ryan found that the other party was unharmed. Camo lightly commented, "Your swordsmanship is still too inexperienced." Suddenly, another knife slashed on the other side of his neck. Jigganar roared angrily, "You really hurt me with that cut. Since that's the case, why don't you evaluate my swordsmanship?" Seeing the blood seeping from his neck, Camo calmly said, "I'm a little better than him." Seeing this, Jigganar shouted to Ryan to put in more effort. Ryan, of course, would not dare to fall behind. Both of them exerted all their strength. The blade gradually touched Camel's skin. Suddenly, 2 forces of sword energy appeared in front of the 2 of them. Even the entire building was chopped into pieces. When everything returned to calm, only Camel stood quietly. And his knife had a corner broken off during the recent battle. Not far away, Jigganar was lying on the ground unmoving. Ryan, who was nearby, wasn't doing much better. Seeing this scene, Camel was about to end their lives. Ryan slowly sat up. However, the bullet ant's limits had been reached, and he had to figure out a way to break the deadlock. So he grabbed the weapon fragments dropped by Camel. Jigganar stood up at some point and provocatively said to Camel, "Hey kid, the fight isn't over yet. If you're capable, come and face me." Camel was about to reply to Ryan when he darted to his side. He instinctively swung a horizontal chop, but Ryan dodged it by bending down. Camel's reaction was also very quick. He immediately used the hilt of the knife to strike downwards. He was suddenly grabbed by the appearing Jigganar and held his arm. A smile appeared on his face. And Ryan was already plunged into Camel's abdomen. Camel said that with those short fragments, he was fine. But Ryan saw through his move, the green whirlwind. Immediately, Ryan's arm turned shiny green. The blade went straight through Camo. Camo didn't wait for Ryan to explain the change that had occurred. A big hand pressed down on his face. Ryan said coldly, "I've taken everything from you." Camo was extremely horrified, but the next moment he only felt that everything he had was gathering on his face, and then flowing to that big hand. He then remembered this inexplicable sense of familiarity. This was the same ability as their leaders. In just a few seconds, Camo was absorbed until nothing was left. Jiganar, seeing this scene, also felt his scalp tingling. He didn't know what kind of monster Ryan was. He's back, he's back. The missing ladybug is finally back. Ryan and Jiganar finally destroyed the fourth leg of the skyworm. At the same time, another guest has checked into the crystal inside Ryan's body. With the addition of the previous bullet ant, there are now 2 guests staying there. Ryan only complained after reverting back to his normal self. "Jiganar, why didn't you use this ability earlier? We had to be beaten half to death. But how did you do it?" Ryan just scared Jiganar with a reach of his hand. He said it was actually a gamble. Before, he absorbed the power through fragments of the bug beast. This time, he was just trying it out. Unexpectedly, he actually absorbed the entire mantis beast. After hearing this, Jiganar became even more hesitant to approach. Suddenly, Ryan spat out a mouthful of blood. He struggled to explain that the mantis beast was still fiercely resisting inside him. Jiganar was worried about Ryan's condition and even felt a chill down his spine. Just then, they heard a whistle coming from the base. Ryan and the others immediately got up to head towards it. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind them. "I advise you all not to go there." The 2 turned around, their eyes widening instantly. Because standing behind them was Ladybug, who had been missing for 2 years. And on the other side, the base was already in chaos. Most of the exterminators had fallen under the illusion. They would see people and declare them to be bug beasts. Only a few familiar faces, who had not been affected by the illusion, desperately tried to stop them. At the same time, Luca and Julia were outside the city dealing with a big bug, while Nami was being held captive in a dark room. She heard the commotion outside and knocked on the door to find out what was going on. When the door was opened from the outside, Nami said it shouldn't be opened, as she still couldn't control the power inside her body. However, the other party quickly said, "We found the bug beast." Without further ado, Nami also admitted that she is the bug beast, but not anymore. Before she could finish her sentence, she saw the other person had already raised the laser gun, muttering to herself to eliminate it immediately. Nami was just about to transform. Suddenly, a cane knocked a big lump on the person's head. Dr. M yelled loudly, "Don't touch my precious experiment specimen." Then he called Nami to go out with him. But after the last incident, Nami is not very trusting of Dr. M. Dr. M immediately became angry. And at this moment, the Supreme Commander Eric is still trapped in an illusion. Alice told him that destroying shelter to create the illusion of human extinction is the last resort to protect humankind. Therefore, the pest extermination organization must be the first to disappear. Eric simply doesn't believe her nonsense. He finally struggled to bite through his own tongue. He finally escaped from Alice's mental world and decisively picked up a sickle and attacked Alice. Alice also reacts very quickly. She once again used her bizarre ability. Eric felt his mind go fuzzy for a moment. But he immediately bit his tongue again to force himself awake. He just hesitated for a moment before rushing towards Alice. Alice didn't expect him to be so persistent. In the end, she could only turn her body to the side. One of her wings on the side was unfortunately chopped off. While Eric maintained a posture of never giving up, Alice then shot out a beam of light from the eye of the wing. It was easily bounced off by Eric's 2 large windmills. The next moment, her other wing was also hacked into pieces. Nami, who was leaving with Dr. M, seemed to have a connection. Dr. M is chattering ahead. He apologizes to Nami for what he did last time. But when he turned around, Nami was no longer in the same place. Little did he know, Nami was heading towards the room where the fierce battle had just taken place. By this time, the battle inside had already ended. Eric leaned wearily against the wall. He pulled out a cigarette and lit it on a screen. The screen lit up with a faint green light on which read, "Launch Protocol." He then muttered quietly, "I'm sorry, everyone. Is this enough? Will you protect humanity as promised?" Alice just nodded in response. Then the tentacles went straight through Eric's head. Ryan never expected that he was just catching the enemy. He was then held at weapon point by several powerful bug beasts. What surprised him even more was, many years after his death, Assistant Mr. was unexpectedly still alive and speaking for the enemy. Just a few minutes ago, Ryan and Jiganar saw shelter engulfed in flames, and shortly after, Alice appeared carrying Nami. Eric Leader was also being carried by a wasp and seemed lifeless. Before Ryan could go up to rescue him, Alice placed Nami not far ahead of him. Ryan quickly stepped forward, took Nami and questioned Alice about Eric's condition. However, Alice only said, "You will understand when the time comes." After she finished speaking, she left with Eric. Ryan then asked Ladybug about the ins and outs of the whole matter. At that moment, a big bug flew out from the side. Ladybug asked Ryan to follow her first. Soon after, Nami woke up on the back of the bug. She said she had a dream that she met Alice. Ryan did not reveal the matter. And not far in front of them was a row of barren hills, where many strange bug beasts were staring at the large insects flying towards them. Just then, the large insects flew into the mountain through a hole. After a moment, it crashed to the ground. The ladybug was the first to land on the ground and make Ryan and the others feel safe. Jiganar was very puzzled as to why they were brought to such a damp place. This is obviously the nest of the bug beast. Is this a new forbidden land? Ryan and Nami also landed one after another. He reminded Nami to be careful. Although there are many humans here, there are also many bug beasts. Nami told him not to worry. After all, she is now considered a bug beast as well. At this time, Clara's voice sounded not far away. "You guys are late." Ladybug, who hasn't seen each other for 2 years, immediately greeted her. "Long time no see." Clara didn't say a word and just got to work. "You actually said long time no see to me. I called you but you didn't answer, and you didn't reply to my messages." She only asked her why she came here first after she tied Ladybug up. "How are the residents of Shelter doing?" Clara said the residents have been taken care of by Luca. She followed someone here. Jiganar looked ahead with some disbelief. "So you didn't come with her, right?" At this moment, Anna was slowly walking with someone. Ryan's temper flared up in an instant. He grabbed Anna and interrogated her about why she was here. Anna, on the other hand, remained calm and composed. The next moment, several bug beasts surrounded Ryan. "Please step back, or we will take action." Jiganar and others also wanted to come up to help, but they were stopped by a ladybug. She asked Ryan and Jiganar to stay calm. Ryan instead questioned him, "What is he doing?" At this moment, a familiar yet unfamiliar voice sounded. "Stop fighting! Let me explain." Ryan was shocked when he heard this voice. The person speaking was Assistant Mr., who had turned into Bug Beast 2 years ago and had lost his mind. "We hope to turn back into humans and live with humans as well, which is known as coexistence. To avoid persecution by your young brother Luis, we have gathered here." Meanwhile, Alice has returned to the headquarters of Skyworm, and the other members are looking forward to the outcome of her mission. And she also knelt before Luis respectfully saying, "According to your orders, we have destroyed Shelter along with the Pest Extermination Organization." This person is the current leader of the Pest Extermination Organization. Luis obviously remembers him. He loudly questioned Eric where he was hiding his granny. But then he burst into crazy laughter. He also said that the old lady couldn't have survived the explosion. Then he praised Alice. I didn't expect you to actually get the job done. It turns out the 4 scouts sent to monitor didn't make it back. Alice expressed that she had tried her best, and she just wanted to rescue her subordinates. Louis, of course, knew her intention. So he simply said, "Come out, Alice." Alice's pupils suddenly contracted. She shouldn't have expected anything in the first place. Now Maya is the last soul, being toyed with by Louis, clearly a result of being completely absorbed. Alice instantly raged. She was pressed to the ground by Louis's large hand. "You, this nasty woman, dare to play with me. Do you think your tricks can deceive me?" And Alice was also shouting loudly, "Quickly kill me!" Louis was a little confused by her words. The next moment, Eric suddenly rose up, and in an instant, he raised his sword in front of Louis. When a man gets angry, various insects will appear on his body. And these insects are all obtained through absorption. It's also because of these bugs that he gains the ability to be nearly immortal. Eric slashed with all his might. He couldn't even touch his skin. The 5th foot, Otis, rushed over when he saw this. But he was blocked by blue smoke halfway, so he quickly covered his mouth and nose to prevent inhaling it. At this moment, the voice of the 2nd foot, Ronald, was heard behind him. He told Otis not to meddle in others' business. After all, these small fries couldn't hurt their leader. As he said, Louis let go of Alice's hand. Then he punched Eric in the chest. He said that this wouldn't kill him. Eric slightly opened his mouth. Brown smoke immediately spewed from his mouth onto Louis's face. Louis just sniffed it. He immediately threw Eric out. Eric was heavily smashed against the stone wall. He opened his mouth in pain, revealing a small purple object inside. Louis was also coughing up blood. Injured and even more furious, bugs kept emerging from all over his body. He loudly demanded from Eric what they had done to themselves. Instead, it was Alice who answered him. She said it was smoke created using toxins from all the bugs. And this plan had been in the works for a long time, starting when Louise turned her friends into bug beasts. Everything they did was to successfully take down Louise. After hearing these words, Louise was so angry that his whole body trembled, and black ant quickly formed beside him. He then shouted angrily, and launched an attack on Alice. His speed was so fast that Alice couldn't dodge at all. But the next moment, she was pushed away by a big hand. And Eric, who pushed her, was instantly pierced through half of his body. Alice was on the verge of collapsing. Eric, using all his strength, said, "You must fulfill our agreement." Originally, in the illusion, these two had already discussed it. Alice intended to sacrifice herself by using poison fog. But Eric immediately snatched it away. He said that since it was designed to look like a smoke pipe, it was destined for him to complete the task. He also said that he couldn't let the young girl do such a thing. After all, although they appear to be enemies now, Alice is also the future of humanity. He hopes she can stay alive. This is also a kind of promise. Time has now returned to the present. Eric has already been submerged by the black ants. Once the ants disperse, not even his bones were left behind. All that remained on the ground were his broken glasses, and some ants wriggling on their backs. Louis then realized that Eric's body also contained toxins. Before he could summon the ants again, Alice was already coming at him with Eric's sword raised. She stabbed through his body with one sword. But Louis, as if not feeling anything, actually reached out and grabbed Alice's head from behind. Alice could only look at him in despair, muttering over and over in her mouth, "I'm going to kill you!" And Louis's words sank her heart even deeper. It turned out that he had known about Alice and their plan to turn back into humans, and he had anticipated that these methods would not threaten his life at all. And the reason he waited here was just to show Alice and them how foolish they were. After saying that, he absorbed Alice into his body, and his momentum seemed to have grown even stronger. Otis rushed over anxiously to inquire about his condition, but Louise suddenly burst into laughter. He mocked Alice and her companions as a group of foolish insects, and then called out to Otis. He asked him to follow his own ant to a place. Otis thought that they were going to destroy the opponent's base, so he immediately wanted to agree. But Luis revealed a sly smile and denied him. He said he would personally go to that place. On the other side, inside the coexistence base, everyone was unaware that the assassination plan had already failed. Anna is also praying that Alice must be all right. At this moment, Jigimar walked in. He first exchanged pleasantries with Anna, saying it had been a long time since they last met. Then he asked her where she went after Club 6 was destroyed. Anna didn't hide anything and said she left with Zane, who had eaten 50 bugs at the time. Then she suddenly asked Jigimar, "Which one do you think is your true self, the transformed appearance or the current one?" Jigimar answered without hesitation, "Of course, the transformed appearance is my true self. The current form is just for the convenience of blending into human life." Anna agreed with him, but she raised a question. "What if one day you can't transform into a human?" Jigimar expressed that it would be very inconvenient, as his insect form was quite sensitive and he would feel restless anywhere. Anna did not comment on his statement. She explained that many bug beasts in the coexistence base were unable to transform into human forms because the stem cells in their bodies, originally meant for transformation into humans, had been consumed by insect cells. This would be a problem that all bug beasts would face in the future. In other words, as time passes, they will only be able to live with insect bodies. Anna is researching how to turn bug beasts back into humans. At the same time, she is also conducting research on this. The greatest achievement of the two research projects is nothing but Zane, this experimental subject. Ryan also learned about this from assistant Mr. He also knew that it was Anna who helped Mr. at that time to prevent him from completely becoming an uncontrollable bug beast. But now it is impossible for them to completely turn back into human form. However, assistant Mr. still thinks it is his own fault, believing that Luis would naturally hold resentment after being monitored for 10 years. Ryan, however, dares not agree. He believes that it was his own young brother's excessive wickedness that led to the current state of the world. Soon after, Anna gathered them together, indicating that a task needed to be done. Ladybug immediately asked about the commission, but Clara scolded him, saying he was only interested in money. Anna also made it clear that it was not free. The purpose this time was to retrieve the experimental results from Anna's previous research institute, and they would be led there by Anna's assistant, Freya. Ryan originally wanted Nami to stay at the base, but Nami firmly disagreed and said she wanted to help out. Ryan did not continue to persuade her, so they set off immediately. However, what they didn't know was that Otis had already visited Anna's research institute, holding in his hand the item they were seeking. Otis asked the nearby Black Ant clone, "It seems like a few people are on their way here. Should we get rid of them before returning?" Black Ant, once Ryan's familiar, suggested. "It has degenerated into a henchman for the major villain, committing evil deeds." Now, after a gap of 2 years, the master and servant finally meet again. It unexpectedly opened its tusks towards Master. Just now, Ryan and his group headed to Anna's research institute. Since Nami is not good at moving quickly, Ryan stayed behind to take care of her. She wants Ryan not to worry about her. Suddenly, 2 golden tortoises blocked the way, but before they could attack, 2 arrows hit them right in the forehead. Clara then realized that this assistant's strength was extraordinary. Ladybug told her that Freya's strength in the base was among the best. At this time, Freya indicated that the research institute was just ahead. However, Ryan suddenly had a sensing. He immediately stopped everyone and explained that there is a bug beast nearby. Others thought it was just like the 2 small trashes earlier, but Ladybug looked particularly serious. She also sensed that the enemy, this time, was extraordinary. Several people looked towards the research institute, and in the next moment, a big hole was blasted into the research institute. Otis and Black Ant walked out from inside, and when they saw the people outside, Otis gave a playful smile. Ryan's gaze stayed on Black Ant the whole time. Suddenly, an arrow was shot out. It was blocked by Black Ant on Otis's head. Otis then asked Black Ant to go back first. So Black Ant tried to leave from the side, but Clara kicked Otis without hesitation. Otis used both arms to block. Clara loudly questioned him why he knew about this place. But as soon as her voice fell, her body started spinning uncontrollably. Before she could react, a big foot was already pressing down on her head. At this critical moment, Ladybug intervened and stopped Otis from chasing her. But Otis' reaction was also very quick. He immediately changed his target and kicked towards Ladybug. Ladybug blocked the attack and unexpectedly praised the opponent's excellent kicking technique. The next moment, his eyes suddenly became passionate. On the other side, Freya had already recognized that Otis was the fifth leg of the skyworm, making her break out in a cold sweat. Suddenly, a figure rushed towards them. Nami immediately recognized that this was a clone of Ryan from the past. Freya didn't hesitate to shoot an arrow, which passed directly through the body of Black Ant, exposing what was inside. Freya said that if someone is coming to retrieve the antidote, it means Alice's actions are effective. Upon hearing this, Nami immediately became serious. At that moment, Black Ant had already passed by the two of them. The only one standing in its way was Ryan, but he remained unfazed as Black Ant charged toward him. With a punch thrown by Black Ant, the fist dispersed before it could touch Ryan. Then, Black Ant's entire body dissipated. Ryan remained motionless, watching the dispersing ants in front of him. It wasn't until it reformed behind him. Ryan then turned his head to ask it, "Why did you hold back with me? Is it out of concern for the past? Come and bite my flesh and blood as you did before." Upon hearing this, Black Ant let out a roar. Ryan was just about to transform. He turned and ran, but after only a couple of steps, a punch turned him into smithereens. Nami then told Ryan that they couldn't let it go. Ryan then asked her to stay further away. Just as he finished speaking, countless ants have already crawled up Nami's arm. Under their bites, Nami screamed in pain. But she still refused to let go, and there were several bottles of antidote inside. Black Ant really had no choice but to disperse from Nami. He didn't know if he had managed to grab all the antidote. Inside the research institute, Otis is confronting Ladybug and Clara. Otis is surprised that the two of them can handle him without transforming, and they are even gaining the upper hand. Otis, on the other hand, blasts both of them away and then strikes a strange pose, saying, "Then I'll let you see. But I hope you won't be taken down easily." With that, he transformed into Ladybug. Clara were not afraid at all. They both said they can talk big too. After saying that, they both activated their second transformation together. However, they had just completed their transformation. Freya shot an arrow at each of them, as if she had timed it perfectly. She was still shouting, "You must forgive me!" The man couldn't understand why he, a boxing champion, was defeated by a martial arts expert. But the difference in their strengths turned out to be so huge. Otis was able to suppress him, and Clara even before transforming, when Otis displayed a transformation afterward. The two no longer harbor any illusions, and directly activate the second stage of transformation. But they were suddenly ambushed by Freya. Clara is puzzled as to why Freya would betray them. On the contrary, Ladybug asked Freya not to do anything unnecessary. After speaking, he pulled out the arrow and threw it away. Upon hearing this, Clara also found that being shot by this arrow was actually painless. After the arrow merged into the body, Clara instead felt her body filled with power. Ladybug then told her that this was Freya's auxiliary method to enhance one's physical functions. Then he asked Clara to let him fight alone. As soon as the words fell, a huge energy ball had just grazed Freya, and her body fell due to the impact of the explosion. Otis said angrily that Freya had disturbed his battle. After saying that, he fired another energy cannon. Freya, who was falling, had no way to dodge. But the next moment, the energy ball was split in half. The wall behind was directly blasted out with 2 large holes, while Freya had already been held up by Clara. Clara said, "Don't get distracted." Otis was immediately punched while he was backing up. Ladybug continued to pursue. Unexpectedly, Otis was punched again. He immediately clasped his hands in a gesture of respect. He launched an energy cannon attack towards Ladybug. I saw a Ladybug flying in front of Ladybug. While it blocked the energy ball, Ladybug got scrapped. The next moment, Ladybug had already arrived in front of the opponent. Otis, who saw the situation, immediately threw a punch in response. The 2 fists clashed without a clear winner. Ladybug then had another Ladybug rush towards Otis. After a burst of explosion, that Ladybug was also disabled. Unharmed, Ladybug asked the other party if the duel was over. On the other hand, Otis, covered in blood, with a fierce expression, indicated that the battle was not over yet. Ladybug is shameless for not wanting to fight. He stated that the duel was over, and the next battle would be between both sides. His fists were still trembling with cracks on them. Soon after, Clara and Ryan came to Otis' side. Otis, on the other hand, was not worried at all. He said that the more of such lowlifes there were, the better, as he could then go all out. He finished speaking and punched the ground. The loud noise was so great that even Nami outside could hear it. This made her worry about Ryan and the others. In a moment, the entire research lab was reduced to pieces. Ryan and the other 2 stood above the pool, all guessing that the other party was an amphibious insect. Now that he had hidden in the water, it was very likely that he had escaped. Clara started to blame Ladybug, feeling that he had the ability to defeat the opponent just now, but why did he give him the chance to escape? Ladybug expressed helplessness about this and explained that just now, it was not as easy as it seemed, and they couldn't launch an attack immediately. And they said that this is the most powerful bug beast they have encountered so far. The one from 2 years ago is not even on the same level. At this point, Ryan reminded the 2 to be careful, as the lake water seemed to be boiling. Immediately, a water ball burst out of the water. Otis was being wrapped in a water ball as he said, "You guys haven't forgotten what I said, have you? Don't die too easily." As he spoke, he had already prepared his attack. Dozens of water balls shot rapidly towards the 3 people. Ladybug and Ryan could only dodge or defend themselves with difficulty, while Clara had already flown into the air. She immediately used silk to cut. The water ball was split in half, revealing the inside transforming into the 2 forms of Otis. Clara, realizing something was wrong, turned around and walked away. However, Otis had no intention of letting her go. A jet of water shot out. It instantly cut Clara, but Clara was not one to be trifled with. She turned around and counterattacked with her 5 fingers shooting out silk. Otis blocked 4 attacks. Only 1 strand of silk pierced through its left shoulder. Then silk immediately tied itself into a knot. It unexpectedly pulled Otis forward for a distance. While Ryan took the opportunity to rush up, Otis unexpectedly advanced instead of retreating. Ryan was hit in the right arm while stabbing his waist. The insect armor on his right arm immediately shattered, and the 2 of them landed simultaneously. However, Otis' expression became even more serious, because at this moment, Ryan's right hand had already started to change. This kind of transformation was all too familiar to him. It was the ability of quadruped Jonas. Ryan did not deny it. He simply said that at this moment, it happened to be the right time to use the guy's power. After saying that, his other hand had already caught Freya's arrow. He inserted the arrow into his own body. Immediately, his body began to undergo changes. Otis was not angry but laughed instead. He expressed that he had long wanted to compete with Jonas, the 4th leg, but due to leader's orders, he didn't have the opportunity. "Now let me learn a lesson from you." With that, he couldn't wait and rushed towards Ryan. And Ryan finally completed his transformation, raising his hand to catch Otis's punch. It was simply too cool. The beaten Ryan looks more like a dark reaper holding a scythe. He harvested Otis's life with just one slash. Just 2 minutes ago, Otis unleashed his second transformation. At the same time, Ryan also utilized the ability he obtained from Jonas. They immediately engaged in battle. In a short moment, they exchanged over 100 moves on the water. Otis not only did not feel sad because of his partner's death, he instead urged Ryan not to lose face for that guy. After speaking, he shot water bullets towards Ryan. But without exception, they were all cut in half by Ryan. Immediately after, Ryan took one step forward and arrived in front of him. Unprepared, Otis was struck by a slash, but he did not retreat and instead moved forward. He landed a punch directly on Ryan's chin. He had to block the punches with only 2 weapons as Ryan tried to defend himself. At the moment they separated, Otis used the water bomb again. Ryan directly threw the weapon as a hidden weapon. He originally wanted to cut open the water bomb to inflict heavy damage on Otis. He didn't expect that, as he flew past Otis from both sides, Otis fired off a water bomb. Then he dodged and arrived behind Ryan, immobilizing him in place. Water balloons hit the two directly, their bodies thrown into the air. Otis was seen flipping in the air. Ryan, unable to move, was directly thrown and fell onto the stones. Otis, on the other hand, bounced to the side. He no longer paid any attention to Ryan's life or death. Instead, he waved to Ladybug. Ladybug stood still. He was seen raising his hand to make a neck-slashing gesture. Otis still didn't know what he was trying to convey. Ryan has already swung the knife in front of him. In a hurry, he could only turn his head sideways, thus saving his life. But he still lost almost half of his face. Ryan then bites onto a sickle. He quickly took out a few small things. The next moment, Otis roared like a madman, only to see him punch the surface of the water, and a special energy extended forward from his feet. Then a burst of energy wave erupted from the water, engulfing Ryan entirely. According to the law of having a smoke without harm, Ryan was indeed unharmed, and at some point, a giant scythe appeared in his hand, blocking most of the attacks. Ryan then approached, wielding the scythe. The next moment, Otis was decapitated, with Ryan grabbing his head in his hand. With a single thought, he absorbed it into his body. He didn't even spare the body on the side. Clara and Ladybug will meet not far away. Clara asked Ladybug what she thought of Ryan's new power, and Ladybug truthfully replied that she had seen it last time. He just didn't expect the power to be so terrifying. But Ryan was still seriously injured, to the point where he could only be supported by Clara. And their purpose for this trip has also been achieved. Freya said she had already obtained the centrifuge during the recent chaos. At the same time, inside the base, Jiganar just yawned, and suddenly the collar around its neck fell off. He wanted to ask if it was Anna who did it. He heard Anna talking on the phone, saying she met 6 Feet Cadre. Jiganar heard it and started yelling, feeling disappointed that he couldn't participate in the operation this time. Anna couldn't be bothered with him, and just wanted to prepare a big meal for them to eat when they returned. When the two of them walked out of the stone room, they realized that the sky had turned dark, even though they remembered it was not late yet. The residents had become uneasy and anxious. Someone took the initiative to fly up to investigate, but when he got closer, he found that the entrance seemed to be blocked. Before he could finish speaking, he fell silent and his body dropped from the sky. There were many black dots floating around his body.